Chapter 118, My Face Hurts a Little One. The technique of inhaling through his nose and exhaling through his mouth was as simple as eating and drinking to Zutui. What was a little foreign was visualization. This was a little difficult for him. Other people would really visualize a dried-up lake in their danchin in their minds. However, Zutui immediately entered the introspective state the moment he closed his eyes and started visualizing. He saw the state of his body. In the realistic introspective state, the so-called danchin was at the lower abdomen. There was no danchin in the skin, peritoneum, internal organs, or blood. His consciousness changed slightly and entered the illusory introspective state. In the illusory introspective state, his lower abdomen was covered in gray, inactivated genetic base points. He did not have a danchin. However, Zutui had read most about the concept of visualization in the books that Luo Murong had lent him. The most important thing about visualization was that you visualized it before thinking about it. What did that mean? In a person's subjective consciousness, they would first have the concept of a dry lake or a pond. If they really did not have any, they could personally take a look at the dry lake. This was called observing. This was a concept that countless people shared. They could even imagine a basin without water. Then, next is thought. What did thought mean? It was to imagine the image of the dried-up lake in their consciousness into their danchin. Simply put, it was enough to imagine that there was a dried-up lake in their danchin. Who cared if it existed? It was fine as long as they could imagine it. This was the visualization technique. That was not difficult for Zutui. He could just imagine the area of his danchin as a dried-up lake. He did it with a little effort. After that, he visualized the tangible and intangible water vapor within his body. However, it was easy to imagine. If he thinks there is, then there is. And he had done it. Then, with his consciousness as the main force, he gathered and directed the tangible and intangible water vapor within his limbs and bones into the dried-up lake, which was also his danchin. Zutui was too familiar with this step. Both the earliest method of activating genetic base points at will and the current method of mind concentration used consciousness as the lead to change the flow of energy within his body. Almost immediately after Zutui thought about it, he felt several dozen streaks of weak heat flowing toward his danchin from various parts of his body. Instantly, the water vapor entered his danchin and joy blossomed within him. This so-called joy was a kind of happiness that came from the body itself. The momentary happiness Zutui felt even made him a little shocked. After the dozens of weak streams of heat gathered at his dried lake, the danchin in his lower abdomen felt warm. It was as though a warm baby was pressing against his stomach. It felt extremely comfortable. He felt a strange sense of fulfillment in the depths of his heart. He was like a hungry person who had eaten his fill. He was very satisfied. However, that was all he got from Shen Jushuang's introductory training technique. Zutui did not know what to do next. Once the thought was released, the focus of his visualization and consciousness would immediately dissipate. The heat that had just gathered at his danchin instantly dissipated and flowed into his limbs. His heart felt empty and he did not feel good. Confused, Zutui opened his eyes. Murong, what exactly is the sensation of qi? Zutui asked, why? Isn't it a little difficult? Luo Murong smiled slightly. He guided Zutui once again. Everyone feels differently. You have to follow the instructions of the teacher and focus on your visualization. Then, highly focus on visualizing the tangible and intangible auras in your limbs and bones. Merge them all into your danchin. You'll have a feeling of qi when you do that. When I visualized the heat flowing into my danchin just now, I felt very comfortable. My danchin felt warm. I was also very satisfied. However, I do not know what to do next. With a thought, the warm current that had flowed into my danchin returned to my limbs. I feel as though my heart has been emptied. Zutui had not finished his sentence when he suddenly noticed that Luo Murong's expression had become extremely strange. Even the golden falcon bud between his brows had become a little deformed because of his widened eyes. Are you sure that you did not practice the introductory method of the energy field before this? No, this is my first try, Zutui said, blinking. Luo Murong was a little confused. You only took a minute, right? You already have a feeling of qi? This. Is the hot sensation that gathers at the danchan the sensation of qi? Luo Murong was speechless. Suddenly, he felt his face hurt. A few minutes ago, he had told Zhu Tui not to compare himself with him. He, Luo Murong, was a genius among geniuses. He had managed to get a sense of qi within an hour. But now, he has been slapped in the face. Zhu Tui only used a few minutes, maybe even a minute, to get a sense of qi. Then what did you think it was? Luo Murong felt that his pride had been hurt. His tone was not good. Why did the heat that gathered, which is the sensation of qi, dissipate? That's because your danchan has not been truly activating. How do I activate the danchan? The most basic method of activating the danchan is actually very simple. It's not a secret. Repeat this step after you find the sensation of qi. Your sensation of qi will become stronger as you repeat the process. You would continuously stimulate the genetic base points related to your danchan. When the stimulation reaches a certain level, you would be able to activate this genetic base point. That would be the beginning of the activation of your danchan.